We have the latest YouTube channel. So there's a sheer one right in front of me.
But we can't show you.
But the rims on it, I'm not feeling it.
No, yeah, I don't really like it either. I like this new Ghost though. I like it. And we have the Phantom, we have the Wraith, we have the, I think another Wraith, and we have something that I have no idea what this is. If you guys know what this is, comment down below. The new Ghost actually has a magic carpet feel. So there's parking sensors at the front that actually scan the road and adjust the suspension of the car to give you that magic carpet feel, which is pretty sick.
Again, I'm Alec, I'm the brand manager here downtown. I also work out of the Uptown store. I sort of bounce back and forth.
You're my star. No, this is his world. This is his world.
So I've had sort of an interesting behind the scenes involvement with DBX. I've had the chance to drive the pre-production cars. I've been to Wales. You know, the first time I saw this car was a render on the CEO's phone going back 4 years now. And because of that, I've sort of taken away some things with DBX, sort of boiled it down to 3 really interesting and different components of the car that are worth mentioning before we actually set off and drive it. First of those is the fact that DBX sits on a completely bespoke chassis. So these days in the car industry, chassis sharing runs sort of rampant. You know, you look at a vehicle like the Range Rover, and it actually is underpinning now 9 different vehicles, that one single chassis. So the fact that Aston Martin designed their own chassis is really special. It took them years to design, and the result of that is space, 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 and more space. So in every measurable way on the inside of DBX, it's best in class. Best in class headroom, legroom, and then in the second row, inches and inches more legroom than you get in some of the direct rivals. And then finally more trunk space. The other thing is it has a very, very long wheelbase. So they stretch the wheels right out to the corner of the chassis. It means it has a really, really smooth handling ride. And it also means the car has better capability off-road, etc. Not that we would go off-roading in Aston Martins, but it definitely can.
It also looks fairly aggressive too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the design is inevitable. Design is something that it's part of our DNA. Second thing is it's got a really trick set of air suspension. So first time in super luxury class that cars come equipped with 3-chamber air ride. So again, going back to Range Rover, again, not to pick on it, but in a Range Rover, you have a low mode, you have a medium mode, and you have a high mode. In this car, you have 5 drive heights, and they're iterative. So if you're driving in regular comfort mode or GT mode, it's gonna sit up quite nice and high. If you put it into sport mode, it'll drop it down slightly. And if you go into Sport Plus mode, it'll drop it down even further. And then the same goes for Terrain and Terrain Plus mode. One of our engineers, pretty blunt guy, he goes, in Wales, he goes, when we're in Terrain Plus, I've got enough ground clearance that I can actually stick my full head in the wheel well. And then he does, and it's just incredible how much capability that adds and lends to the performance. The last thing that's really neat, it's a trick technology called, you may have or may not have heard of this before, 48-volt anti-roll tech. It was first debuted on the Bentley SUV Bentayga, and it was fitted to the rear axle. It's essentially an electric drivetrain, but what it does is it props the car up in corners versus powering the car forward. So it gives it this magic handling that SUVs hadn't really had up until that point. It became standard fitment on the Urus when it was first introduced. The magic of DBX is it has, for the first time ever, twin axle anti-roll. So one drivetrain on the rear and then a second 48-volt on the front. And they operate at twice the power of any previous system. So 1,240 newton meters of torque on each axle. Now the result of all that is if you chuck the car through a corner, it has the same roll pitch at speed as Vantage. And that's just unheard of. When you couple that together with a bespoke chassis, it doesn't weigh a lot. And our bespoke 4-wheel drive system, which is as much as 100% rear-wheel drive, you can go actually lock it in a drift mode if you really wanted to. It's pretty freaking wicked, the handling. And that's been the general consensus with DBX, is it all kind of goes together to create something that's really different. A lot of the time in the car industry, people will say, the reason you need to buy this is because it's new and exciting. But in reality, there's nothing actually behind those words. In the case of DBX, there are genuine technological advancements that make it drive better. So definitely cool.
It's a big push into the SUV segment, and looks like Aston Martin's hit on the head with this one.
Yeah, we're excited about it. They've been selling like hotcakes. It's now just sort of the same thing with the Lamborghinis, and it's the fight for allocations. So, but in any case,
problem to have.
It's a great problem to have. But our thing worth mentioning is it is in fact an Aston Martin, so the customization and bespoking options are extensive. You know, some brands you'll go to them and they'll say, I find it funny, when Maserati introduced their car, their SUV, they had sort of, I think it was 6 or 7 different leather hide options. We kind of joke about this because we have 100 leather hide options, and you have the choice between 5 different trim splits, and you can choose exotic materials like wool. You can actually do a wool felt trim split on the inside of the car. It's endless opportunity to do cool stuff.
They say the British have good taste.
Yes, yes, they do. This particular one has DB Elegance Pack, which was one of the sort of bespoke alterations that can be done. It adds in excess of 1.1 million individual stitches. And they actually blend over multiple different styles of stitching. So you have fine stitching, and then on certain textures you have coarse stitching, which is thicker. Everything on the inside with regards to door pulls and also the door frames, it's all extruded aluminum, so it can actually be anodized in different materials. The trims can be extended, a whole host of different things. Aston really knocked it out of the park. One thing I really think is cool, so we had a partnership for the last 15 plus years with Bang & Olufsen. And these days now you can get B&O on a Ford F-150. And I gather they weren't super happy about that. So we took the learnings that we had learned from B&O over the last 15 years to design our own in-house sound system. But with sound systems, the coolest part is always the speaker grills and how those look. So Aston Martin, you know, pressed with what they do for their own design. Well, we're famous for leather. So they ended up wrapping all of the speakers in their beautiful Scottish leather. It's the first car in history to have leather wrapped speakers.
I noticed that. It's the first time I've noticed it.
Pretty awesome. So.
And it blends in, it's very classy, it's clean.
Yep.
And it doesn't affect the quality of the speakers whatsoever.
Yeah, well, it's just it. I mean, I will say the sound system on this is killer. I think they actually did a better job than even just in the B&Os, because B&O is kind of just okay.
Now it's just okay.
Oh, now it's just okay when you have this. It's the same thing actually Rolls-Royce, interestingly enough, did. There is this sort of, I compare it oftentimes to the watch industry. It's this big push for in-house design. So in the case of Rolls-Royce, they insourced to make their own sound system, and they increased the quality of it. In the case of Aston Martin, it's the exact same thing. So comparable with like in-house movements. This is the thing, is this is a very run-of-the-mill configuration. The options are extensive. Like I've done some of the bespoking, that's where my area of expertise really is Aston Martin offers such a wide palette of colors that are available to spec. You really need someone who's sort of at ground level with that to know what looks good and what works well. And some of the configurations I've had the chance to configure with my customers. I was just talking with Mike about this. There's one really neat color I've been wanting to do on one, and these customers just fell in love with it. We did Q exclusive, so this is through commission collection, AM Heritage Racing Green from the 1960s, non-metallic, all black pack with this like beautiful cognac interior, contrast quilting, the whole nine.
Two SVJs and an Evo.
I know, right? I always joke with Alec. I was like, "You're so numb to these cars." I'll come in every time. It's like,
You know what the funny thing is? Before on a FR2, I was very numb to all these type of vehicles. I said, you know what? I kept my X6 for years. I was like, it's a great car.
The points that I was mentioning about all-wheel drive system. The all-wheel drive system at 4x4 on DBX is really quite different. It's very, very unique in its class. A couple other things, that anti-roll system, it's like very prevalent when you're driving the car. When you're on track, because I've had this now a couple times on track, it's one of the few vehicles where I can actually kick the rear end out. I can actually get it into a controlled slide. So it's just much more fun than a lot of other vehicles. I'd also say that as a driver goes, it's comparable with like a Mercedes E63 Estate. Similar technology for the all-wheel drive system, but it's just never been before in an SUV.
Well, it's down to be tested in the DBX, eh?
Oh yeah. We'll pair you up with one of those programs. So when you're driving it yourself, it's smart enough that it can think things that you would think 2 seconds after you're supposed to think of, and do it all for you. And it's really, really smart. A lot of fun can be had with this one.
Now I noticed that your traction controls. Does that mean you're in Sport? Well, you are in Sport Plus.
I got it in Sport Plus.
Okay.
Yeah. I like to sort of balance between modes, but whenever I'm doing my segment of the drive, I usually just demonstrate it in Sport Plus.
No, I'm glad.
This is DSC track, so it allows us a little bit of slip, but it will save us sort of right before. So coming off of the on-ramp here, off-ramp, you'll feel sort of...
So what's the exhaust work like?
So this is the standard exhaust.
Okay.
You can get a sport exhaust that's even louder than this. The thing about it is, it really only affects the rear seat passengers.
Yeah.
The front cabin space, it's non-existent, and out the rear, it's non-existent as well. So what I would say is the sport exhaust is for a more immersive cabin where everybody hears the same thing I hear up front.
Yeah.
And then I guess if you're just going with the stock exhaust, there's nothing wrong with that. The reason that they have two of them is specifically because if you have any pets or kids in the back, it's really difficult to fall asleep.
It is.
When you have the sport exhaust.
Exactly.
So in this one, it sounds wicked up front. It's a little quieter in the back. $2,800 to make it loud for everybody. You know, I'm sure North Face Rally guys would want it with everything.
100%. 100%.
I know a couple of guys that want it.
Oh yeah. So here you can start to feel it. See it rotate? That's because it is fully rear-wheel drive.
And it's pretty cold outside.
Yeah.
Put it in individual mode. Individual mode, I can customize everything about this. So what I have here for us today is comfort, 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 racing exhaust.
Okay.
So now, when you're in the city, this just becomes a delightful fucking...
Pleasant to drive, but you still get the,
Yeah.
the sound of it.
Exactly, and it's effortless. It's effortless to drive in this mode.
This is my style of mode.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'm not as aggressive as the rest of them.
well, the thing about this is you can have both, right? We understand there's gonna be people who want a sports car, and that's why we engineered it to be a sports car. But then we understand that other people are gonna approach us and they want to have the luxury that Aston Martin is synonymous with. And in that sense, this vehicle has to kind of be a bit of both. It has to be both super luxury while simultaneously pretty sporty.
Pretty much sold.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Loved it.
What's your opinion on the drive?
Stable, feels like a sports car. You get everything you want, basically, in this SUV. I would strongly recommend. As a matter of fact, I would actually personally, I'll put my money where my mouth is, I would actually personally look into getting one of these. As soon as they become available.
As soon as they become
available. Mike, thank you so much for the invite today. I appreciate it. This is the gentleman for the bespoke experience for all Aston Martins coming through Grand Touring. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the invitation.
Not a problem.
All right.
And there you have it, guys. That was the vlog about the Aston Martin. Stay tuned for what's coming next. We got some special.
Oh yeah,
Special
I'm
things
telling you,
coming.
we have some special stuff. Musa, he's gonna kill 2021.
Yeah.